የኢትዮጵያን ታሪኳን ሃይማኖታዊ ፍዳዋን እንዲሁም ሀገራችንን ለዓለም ያበረከተችውን አስተዋጽኦ በተመለከተ ዲያቆን ይትባረክና ዲያቆን ኖላዊ ፕሬዘንቴሽን አቅርበውናል። እንዲያቀርቡልን በተመለከተ
We would like to now introduce Diakon Yitabarak and the significance of Ethiopia and the contributions our country has made to the world and the responsibilities of youth to maintain their religion and culture.
እንደምን ዋላችሁ? እንደምን ቆያችሁ? የተመሰገነ ይሁን። ስለዚህ ዛሬ today we have brought to you a presentation about historical and importance, Christianity related, and overall the history of Ethiopia. So the title of Ethiopia shall soon stretch forth her hands unto God, which is a psalm verse. Okay, so we'll start off with some interesting facts with Ethiopia. So Ethiopia is located in the Horn of Africa. It is the second most populated country in Africa with 115 million citizens. Ethiopia has a total of 80 different languages, with the main language being Amharic, and the main religion in Ethiopia is Orthodoxy. So as you see, Ethiopia is a very diverse country, and she has many different cultures and traditions within her country.
So Ethiopia is one of the most interesting history, one of in the whole world. And aside from Lucy and other artifacts that you can find, the mass majority of Ethiopia's artifacts came from the religion, which is the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Ethiopia is known for the natural beauty that comes from the cities and the countryside that you could find. You can go find some beautiful UNESCO World Heritage Sites all over Ethiopia, and it has the most in Africa. And its history is very beautiful and well kept. So if you go to some very old gadams and old places and churches, you can find books that were made during the Solomonic dynasty, which was thousands of years ago. And so you can go to some places like Aksum Obelisk, the Fasil Gabi, the Blue Nile, the Lake Dana, the Semain Mountains, and the Rakhim churches of Lalibela.
So Ethiopia has many dynasties, starting from Damat, Aksumite Kingdom, the Zagwe dynasty, Solomonic dynasty, the Grai Muhammad era, the Zaman of Mesafint, the era of the princes, and the Solomonic dynasty, the second part of Solomonic dynasty, which is Menelik's time. Okay, so the true beginning of Ethiopia started by King Menelik I, the son of King Solomon and Queen Sheba. When he established the Aksumite kingdom, 300 years later, Saint Frumentius and the 9 saints brought Christianity to Ethiopia. So Ethiopia is a very old country, and as we see, she began thousands of years ago when King Menelik was born, the first, and he decided to establish the Aksumite kingdom as the son of Solomon and Queen Sheba. So King Izana was the first Christian king of Ethiopia, and from there on, Christianity was married to Ethiopia. Sadly, the long-lasting dynasty of the Aksumite kingdom came to an end due to a litany of problems, including the exception of the Muslims into Ethiopia from Saudi Arabia, which led to an Islamic invasion by the Muslims, taking over the Adilis port. So this is related to the Grai Muhammad era, and so this slowed down foreign relationships and trades and brought the demise of great Ethiopia. Additionally, Yorit Gudit was another burden to the Aksumite kingdom as well as Christian Ethiopia.
So after the Zagwe dynasty, which was also known in Giz, it's Zaago, so it's the people of Ago. After that dynasty was overthrown by Yukono Amlak, he claimed that he was a part of the Aksumite kingdom, and he said that he was a direct descendant of one of the kings. And he said that he was going to continue the Aksumite kingdom And from then on, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church was launched into one of the most special moments. And as I stated earlier, the books that were found that are kept, being well kept, most of them, a lot of them came from the Solomonic dynasty. And a lot of treasures was also there. And one of the special moments also was the territorial expansion, where they took over lots of land, and so they expanded from its original small space in during the Aksumite Kingdom. And then after that, as I said, the books were kept. And soon there was a period where the relations with the Ethiopian Orthodox and the Islam were getting worse, because Ethiopia was the only country that was Orthodox, surrounded by mainly Islam people, the Islamic religion, the Muslims. They were all surrounding them. And so they wanted to get in, and the relations were worsening and worsening. And then after that, the Ottoman Empire, with the support of Ahmad ibn Ibrahim al-Ghazi, or Grand Mahmud as we all know, took 3/4 of the territory of Ethiopia. So we jump to that.
So the introduction of Christianity to Ethiopia. Christianity was introduced to Ethiopia during the Aksumite Kingdom in the 4th century. It was first introduced by St. Frumentius. After working in the Ethiopian court, sovereign residence, he began to teach Christianity to the people. So Frumentius later sent saints from Egypt to Ethiopia and converted many people, including the king, into King Izana, into Christianity. After baptizing King Izana to Christianity, many churches were built, and Christianity became the country's official religion. So this began up in the 4th century, and as we see, Christianity wasn't with Ethiopia since the beginning. It was introduced by Saint Frumentius, and as we saw, he would come and he would introduce it to us. And as we see, he would send saints from Egypt to Ethiopia, which he used to baptize King Izana and officially make Ethiopia and Orthodoxy in a marriage. So additionally, the 9 saints also had an impact on religion in Ethiopia, as they also converted many local people of the Aksumite Kingdom to Christianity, while also building many monasteries during the 5th century. So many of the monasteries that we see all across Ethiopia was mainly built around the 5th century, in which Ethiopia was starting to get introduced into Christianity. And as we see, we saw that they were successful, because there are many monasteries, gadams, and Beta Christians that were built at the time and are still standing to this day.
And so we can talk about the battles of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, and beginning with Yodit Gudit, and many countries tried to invade Ethiopia, and so Yodit Gudit had a very big impact on the Aksumite Kingdom's downfall. The first time was put into danger was during the civil conflict, and then after that, Ethiopia was under attack around 970 AD. At the time, Ethiopia was called the Aksumite Kingdom, and Yodit Gudit was a Jewish queen, and she laid waste to the country by burning down churches, destroying monuments, and trying to kill the royal family, which she was actually a part of. She was a descendant of one of the kings. And so after that, she tried to eradicate Christianity in Ethiopia. She was provided with an army, and then after that, she set out to attack Aksum. And there she ruled for 40 years before dying. And then the Zagreb dynasty was the next era in line.
So after Yodit Gudit would almost eradicate Christianity across Ethiopia, many hundreds of years later, we also see Ahmad ibn Ibrahim al-Ghazi, or Grand Mahmud, also planned his attack on Ethiopia. So Islam entered Ethiopia in the 7th century, around 200 years after Orthodoxy was introduced to Ethiopia. So the Islamic influence was rising, and every time a clash would break out, Christians would always win. But during the 16th century, a competition broke out between the Ottoman Empire and the Portuguese over control of the Red Sea. This led to the Ethiopian Muslims to gaining the alliance of the Middle East, who would send supplies to them. So leading up to that, there was many protests and clashes that were breaking out between Ethiopian Orthodoxes and Ethiopian Muslims. And leading up to that, until then, the Christians who had been predominant at the time would always win. But then, as we said, in the 16th century, the Ethiopian Muslims would gain support from the Middle East, and they would start to get supplies and start to get more support. After Ahmad decided to take over, Ethiopian Christians started losing. And by 1540, Ahmad had taken over 3/4 of Ethiopia, and the king Lebnadenged had been made a fugitive. So by the time 1540 arrives, the Ethiopian Muslims had gained a lot of support, had gained many supplies, so they were winning. They were starting to win, and this led to Grai Muhammad to decide to take over Ethiopia. And as we said, he took over 3/4 of Ethiopia, making him almost successful. And at the time, they also made the king Lebnadengel a fugitive and a wanted man. After Lebnadengel's son Galaudios took over, he only inherited a small army. Before his father's death, Galaudios had asked for a military assistance from the king of Portugal, and in 1542, after they defeated Ghazi, they retaliated with the help of Turkish soldiers. His son, Galaudios, had, after his father's death, because Ethiopia has been taken over almost by Grai Muhammad, he had nothing to inherit. He only inherited a small troop. So when he realized that this wasn't enough to win against Grai Muhammad, he asked the king of Portugal for assistance, who would send him soldiers and supplies and give him his massive support. They would end up defeating Ghazi, and he would also have he would come back later, and he would retaliate with the help of Turkish soldiers who were also Muslim. But on February 21st, 1543, Galaudios and his mother decide to attack with the Portuguese soldiers, and even though they were outnumbered, the Ethiopians and Portuguese managed to shoot and kill Ghazi, thus ending his tyranny in Ethiopia. So once they attacked Ghazi's Ghazi's soldiers and him, they would end up killing him. And once they did kill him, since his soldiers had nowhere to go and didn't know what to do, they would end up retreating and thus ending the reign that Grai Muhammad had over Ethiopia.
So we all know that Ethiopia has been said in the Bible many times, and Ethiopia has a significance with the Bible, and it's considered as a holy and blessed land with a lot of importance. Ethiopia has been mentioned in the Bible 60 times, second to Israel, of course, and this shows how holy the motherland is and her influence in Christianity. Understanding the Ethiopia's ties with Christianity and how deep the influence is in our culture and traditions is very important. Great.
So Ethiopia has had many contributions to the world with her literature and astronomy and science. Ethiopia is a country that was ahead of its time, and Ethiopia had discovered a lot about the universe before most planets did, thanks to the church. So Ethiopia had massive intelligence about what was outside of our world and how the planets functioned and all its features before many of these modern day scientists had any idea about them. The Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church is a very well educated in many aspects of the modern world and space. Some historians even argue that Ethiopia is the beginning of astronomy. Ethiopia was the first to name the planets based on the physical characteristics they possess. So they were able to study the planets, the rotations, their characteristics, and name them before any other country or scientist had any idea about them. Constellations are also named after Ethiopian nobles, mostly known. Cassiopeia, Andromeda, and Cephus are all named after an Ethiopian royal family. Ethiopia's influence in astronomy is also seen in the naming of galaxies. The Andromeda Galaxy is also named after the Ethiopian princess because it is seen near the Andromeda constellation. So we see a lot of Ethiopia's influence in the science and modern astronomy, and how scientists are thanking Ethiopia's discoveries and their knowledge on space.
So we also want to talk about Ethiopia's contribution to Africa and how important they are to the continent as a whole. Ethiopia is, as we all know, and we've been told millions of times, Ethiopia is the only country in Africa to never be colonized. But it is a bright spot in Africa's history because they are not all taken over. They have their own indigenous language, and there's over 80 of them. And so it is very important. They were very key in the decolonization of Africa and had an important part in making these countries let go of them. Even though there is still some influence of those countries colonized by their colonizers, it is still important to understand that Ethiopia had an effect also in the decolonization of many African countries. And they also, King Haile Selassie was important in the African Union as well.
So, as we all know, we are here today to raise awareness about the issue in Ethiopia. And so we have created a question for the youth to answer. And the question is, how can we, the youth, help Ethiopia in its current situation? And what contributions can we make together to combat the current deadly situations? So if any of you guys have any suggestions, we would like to hear them from you guys. So, how can we help Ethiopia? Who will come up with any suggestions?
By donating money. By donating money.
Okay, by donating money. Who can give us other suggestions? How can we make contributions?
We would like you guys to discuss it between yourselves how we can help the youth in this current how we as the youth can help Ethiopia in this current situation. So if could you guys make at least groups of 3 or 4 and discuss it between yourselves what we can do, because it's pretty bad what's going on. So what can we do? Talking to yourselves, and we will go over this in a few minutes.
presentation ስለ ኢትዮጵያ ታሪክ የኢትዮጵያ እና ኦርቶዶክስ ጋር የሚያገናኘውን ታሪኳን እና ለዓለም ያበረከተችው ብዙ ነገሮች የምታውቃቸው እሱን የሚያካትት ነው እና በደንብ አድርገን ያው ኢትዮጵያ እንዴት ከዚህ በፊትም በጦርነት ሀገሪቷ እንዴት እንደተጠቃች ሌሎች ሀገራቶችም ኢትዮጵያን ለመውሰድ እንደፈለጉ የክርስቲያኖችንም ለማጥፋት ለመወገድ የተደረገውን እና እንዴት ከዚህ በፊትም በእግዚአብሔር እርዳታ እንዳሸነፈች እንዴት ለዓለም ሁሉ በእውቀቷ ያበረከተችው እርዳታ ነው የሚያካትተው። ስለዚህ
So in the time that you guys had, I hope you guys came up with some points and ideas to explain or help us understand how we can help Ethiopia. So we would like to hear somebody from the crowd, a few people. Raise a show of hands. Want to give your idea on how we can help Ethiopia in its current situation, how the church is being ruined, and how relations between different regions are being worse and worse. So quick, someone? Yeah.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. With some of the money, like by donating and stuff, with some of the money that Ethiopia is getting, we could create shelter, maybe clean food and like provide clean food and clean water for those who can't afford it. And probably it's better to build shelters for those who can't live at their homes. And like because of the war, for like their homes are destroyed. So it's better to create shelters and clean food for them.
That was good. So one more, anybody want to include something? So creating shelters and raising money was one of them. Anybody else want to give them their idea?
On this side.
Well, not only is it important that they get like money and food, but we can also pray for them.
So praying for Ethiopia and asking God to help us, and as you said, building shelters and supplying clean food and clean water is a very good suggestion. So thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys learned something very important from this presentation, and I appreciate you guys having us today.
The presentation is coming on a second.